stitching friends. I'm Amy. I'm the Globetrotting Stitcher, and it is great to be back with you. It has been a longer than normal period, as we warned you it might be, so I think it's almost a month since we filmed our last update. And as we told you, this is just a very busy season for us. But we're really happy to be back with you. We've got some good stitchy stuff to show you. So I am, as you can see, I'm home from my trip to Rwanda. I'll share a little bit about that later, but don't have a whole lot to talk about. And then tomorrow I'm making a very quick trip to Atlanta because I have to go do an interview to get a visa to go to Nigeria. So quick turnaround, but it's still it's, like a 48-hour period away from, well, not quite 48. Regardless, I have to leave. So anyway, just a busy time. Other than that, I think we're just kind of bumping along, like doing life. So there's not a whole lot in the way of updates to share with you. So I think we can just hop right into the stitching and get you the stuff that you're here to see today. Yeah, we'll show you what we've been working on. I don't have any finishes or fully finished objects to show you, but I will show you, I guess my first whip that I'll show you is, sorry you guys, wow, rough start here. First whip I'll show you is my wild card. So I am stitching Cabin Fever. This is a Dimensions Gold Collection kit. I am using the kit fabric and floss. And the last time you saw this project, I had made some good progress. I had hit a couple of milestones, so I got all the way across the top of the design and had kind of stitched in at least the first couple rows along all the way to the top. I had also filled in more of the large meadow section that's along the bottom left of the design and kind of curves around the pond that's in the middle. I had stitched down through the middle and finally finished with the sky in that middle section and down to kind of the horizon line and into the pond where everything starts reflecting. And I had also started a little bit of the back stitching in the cabin, which brought some really nice detail and layering to life. So this is where I am right now on Cabin Fever. So you'll probably notice right off the bat where virtually all of the progress is. So this is the project that I took with me to Rwanda. And while I was there, I had a very, very busy week. I also, normally when I stitch this, I put it in a big old Q-snap so I can see the entire big area and kind of stitch wherever I want to in the project. Because I was traveling, I didn't want to take a big old Q-snap with me, so I just took my Nurge hoop, and that necessitated focusing in a very specific area of the design. So as you can see, I did quite a bit of fill-in up here, this whole big chunk. When you saw it the last time, I had just stitched a little bit of this top border. And so I brought quite a bit of that down with the trees and the fill-in on there. I did, once I got home, I think I had a few hours that I got to put in on this. And so got to work in some other areas, did a little bit more fill-in on the roof here. I also, as you can see, carried some of this background down the side of the house. And I think I got a little bit more progress in the meadow or the pond area, and then maybe just a little bit more down here. But really, the big story on progress here is just all of this fill-in up here. And it may not look like it, but it's like 2,500 stitches, 2,400 stitches of progress. So yeah, that's where that is. I am happy that I did get kind of that really big chunk of concentrated stitching, because this piece is so background heavy that sometimes the background can feel a bit like a slog. And so it was nice to like just knock out such a big chunk of that all in one fell swoop during that rotation. So that's where I am on Cabin Fever. The next project that I have to share with you is my Fancy Lady. So I am working on Rosa Sharon by Mirabilia, and I am stitching her on a piece of 32 count Meadowview Lugana by Fabric Flair, using all the called for DMC floss. And Yes, and that Meadowview fabric, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, Meadowview is printed fabric, not a dyed fabric. And so one of the things I loved about this one is it's like a blue to green fade. So you've got sort of this blue with some hints of white. It definitely looks like a sky, a summer sky with a little bit of cloud in it, and then fading down into this soft green meadow kind of color. So the last time you saw this, I had stitched down the right side of the arch and got in a pretty large chunk. I hadn't finished, but there's a big ornamental design that's sort of midway down the arch that she's standing under on the right hand side. So I had stitched a good chunk of that. I had also done a fair bit of the fill-in on the top left side of the arch. There's like a swag of flowers and greens, and so I had I had actually gotten almost done with that. And then of course I'd been working continually working down through her gown, through the skirt of her gown, and I'd put in a fair bit of focus on the blue kind of draping of the fabric in her skirt. So let me show you where this one is right now. All right, this is how this is looking right now. So as you can see on the left-hand side of the arch, this swag of roses and greens is completely finished now. I was able to start carrying this arch down along the left side and started working in this new kind of draping of green, and then also put the first few stitches in. There's an ornament that mirrors this ornamental section here. And so I'd put the first few stitches in on that. As well, you can see on this side of the arch, I've now finished completely that big ornamental section and then carried the arch or the pillar down closer to the bottom of her skirt. I also put a little bit more stitching in. There's these beautiful hollyhocks that are on either side of her, so I put a little bit more stitching in that. And then again, continued working my way down through her skirt. But one of the things that I'm pretty pleased about is I've now finished all of the blue draping in her skirt. So the only thing that I have left in her gown, which is a lot, but it's all yellows, yellows and tans from here. So that is where she is. Once again, this was a piece that she's so beautiful and I love her, but for whatever reason, when she comes out in rotation, it's like my brain goes on vacation and I find myself fiddling around with my phone or having a busy week. And so she just tends to lag behind as far as the amount of progress I make on her. But as you can see, we are getting there bit by bit, and I think she's just beautiful. So that is where I am on the Rose of Sharon. So I have a few more whips to show you, but first let's hear from Gary on what he's been working on.
Hello. Well, I've been working on two things, Louis Armstrong and Wonder Woman. We're going to talk about Louis Armstrong first. Louis Armstrong is by Stitching Jewels Designs, and it's stitched on 16 count white Ader with DNC 310, which is black. But you can do whatever color you like. I'm sticking with black. Anyway, the last time you guys saw this, it was really not even a start. There was one stitch in it, and we had more fun with how much fabric is there than anything else. But since then, I've actually spent maybe 4 hours, I think, working on it. Here it is now. So some of this might seem familiar to you guys because I have stitched every one of those stitches before. But here we are on the start. That's actually the bottom of page 1. And after that little sparsely populated black stuff all the way over there on the left, I guess. Anyway, there's 2 or 3 more boxes and then the bottom of the first page will be done. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because for whatever reason, I seem to be moving quicker using what is it, page what?
Pattern Keeper.
Pattern Keeper. Yeah, that's it, Pattern Keeper. I seem to be moving quicker using Pattern Keeper. In addition to that, I only made like 1 mistake so far and I caught it really quickly. And there are 2 reasons for that, I think. One is that I'm using Pattern Keeper, so I'm really isolated on what area I can work on. It's a little Kindle, so I don't have the whole sheet. And two, when I worked on Louis Armstrong before, I tried to be miserly with the thread. So I would do this one and then this one and then this one and this one and this one, and they'd all be a single deal. Well, that carried over to the whole, that workflow carried over to the whole project which really lent itself to making multiple errors, which we corrected, and then we found out we didn't have enough fabric. So there you have it. Anyway, so I'm just going to suggest, if this is new to you, if you haven't really been doing cross stitch too much, whether you're using an electronic source or just a sheet, just pick a block of 10 and do those 10. Don't worry about anything else. There might be one above it or something like that, but just do the 10 in that box. The only exception I'll make is that in this one, there was a row of 10, and then there were several of them that had like one X in it that were one line away from the bottom of the page, so I just did those too. But generally speaking, I'm just going to stick with that box of 10, and I'm going to do columns. I'm not going to do, oh, here's one here, here's one here. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be methodical. So I think that's why I'm going faster. I don't know. We'll find out. Either that, or it's because I have quite a bit of experience with this particular project. One of the two. Anyway, so that's where Louis Armstrong is. Yeah. And the next one I'm working on is Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman is by Cross Stitch Bay, and it's an Etsy shop, and it sits on 16 count pewter with the called for DMC. However, that's not true. We changed the teal color in her hair and her pants, if you will. We changed that to a darker blue because the teal just seemed too bright. But anyway, that's all we did. So the last time that you saw it, I think I had just, I think I still had to fill out the black line or the outline for the black, and I had put it down for a while because I'd made another mistake, and we had to work to correct it, and I just put both of them down for a while. So then I came back to it and finished out the black outline on that page, and then started filling in some of the colors. So all I have to do now on this one, obviously you could see half of it is just, anyway, most of it's the flesh tone. So I'm gonna be working on that, but I'll probably spend a lot more time on Louis Armstrong because I'm really anxious to get to the stitch that I was at before the catastrophe happened. Anyway, but I will be working on this one, but we might see some slower progress on it than normal from me. Anyway, so that's where we are with my two cross-stitching projects. The only other thing is the action figure for today is from the, was it 80s? There was a character called Alf. And I wasn't really, I liked Alf, but whatever. I had to get the figure because of all the accessories he came with. Here's the picture of him. I initially took this not thinking anything political. So if you're thinking something political when you watch this, good on you. But I just thought it was a cool figure with a tabby flavored Eat Me. Anyway, so that's where I am. We'll see you. We'll see you another time.
Okay, the last whip I have to show is my full coverage project. So I have spent the better part of the last week working on Rose Trellis in by Heaven and Earth Designs. I am stitching this on 28 count white Lugana 2/1, going back and forth between half stitch and continental stitch. So the last time you saw this, I had finished stitching the lady who's on the front porch, who I'm calling Matilda. So I had finished stitching her. I had started stitching down through the railing along the front porch. I had also started into stitching. There's some beautiful white and yellow flower pots that sit on either side of the front steps, and so I had started stitching down through the ones on the right hand side. And I had actually nearly finished, or I was well on my way to being done with the front steps. So this may not look like it's had a ton of progress, but I've actually put in almost 2,500 stitches since you last saw it. So here's where it is right now. So as you can see, these front steps, there's just literally a handful of stitches that are left to kind of fill in these little sections over here, and then the front steps will be completely finished. I have, and a fair bit of the progress that's been made is kind of tucked in and hidden behind the park threads, so apologies for that. But I've stitched in more of the flower pots over here. I've also got a good bit of progress on this big pink pot of flowers that will match the pink pot of flowers on the left side on this post. Stitched more of the front porch railing, and then there's this green bush with white flowers here. The other thing where I've made some progress that's a little bit harder to see is I've now started stitching in the actual rose trellis in sign that sits in the front yard of the inn. And so you can see here the top of the finial and then the outline of where the left side post will go down. And then behind my parked threads, again, there's this bright red heart that's in the corner, top left corner of the sign. The other thing that I've made some progress on, I've kind of finished stitching this middle window here, and I've made good progress in stitching the gentleman who is sitting with Matilda. And I am I'm looking at him, he's given me some Stan Lee vibes, and if you don't know who Stan Lee is, Gary can tell you who Stan Lee is. But I feel like we've got like a Stan Lee cameo here. And so we're starting to get some progress on him. So that's where this project is right now. I am gonna spend one more partial day working on this. So once we finish our video today, this will be my focus for the rest of the day. I'm hoping to get another like 600 stitches in, which might be a little bit ambitious. This section is like all the confetti in the world. It's so much confetti. And so it's very slow going. Beautiful, beautiful detail, but very, very slow going. But this is what I will be focused on. I did some calculations to kind of see, I am still currently on track to finish this by the end of 2025, but I'll have to stitch close to 3,000 stitches a month to accomplish that. It's not at all, it's completely achievable, but we'll see. So that's where we are on that. Okay, so I have one more stitchy project to show you, and that is a new start. And what's kind of funny about this new start is I should have actually showed you this project in our last video because I had started it when we filmed our last video. And I just completely my brain was whoop. And so I didn't show this to you, but it actually, I think, works out kind of well because while I have worked on it since then, it literally got one day of stitching and it was not very much progress. So it's not the most impressive new start in the world, but it's a start and I love this project. So this is the project I am currently working on for the seasonal part of my rotation. And it doesn't have a name. This designer does not use names. They just use numbers, and it's just chart 2016. I'm calling it Joyeux Noël because that's what it says in the design. It's Joyeux Noël. And the designer is, prepare yourselves, people of France. I'm about to butcher your language. The designer is Un Croix le Thème d'un Tea. I am stitching this piece on 36 count natural Edinburgh linen by Zweigert, and I am using the called for DMC. So I guess I should have had this loaded up. I'm sorry about that. Here's what I have accomplished so far. So as you can see, actually you maybe can't see, but hopefully you can, there's a bunch of little white snow ninja stitches all scattered across through here. So I've done some of those. I've started the J for Joyeux. I have started this sweet little deer. What's a baby deer called?
Baby.
No, it's a fawn. Oh my gosh, all I could think was venison. Moving on. So I started the fawn, and then I've started this really beautiful kind of I guess, branch spray kind of thing. There's a really interesting design element or stitch style in this project that I have, in 30 plus years of stitching, have never encountered before. And that is, the chart instructs you on one of the stitches, you do a full cross of one color, and then you come back in with a different color and you do a half stitch over the top of that, which is a really interesting layered effect. I can definitely tell where that's been done, but I like it. It's really interesting. I've just never seen that anywhere else on any other charts. So I have a few other charts by this designer, so I'm very interested to see if they use a similar technique on any of their other projects, or if it's just unique to this one. But that is my wee start on Joyeux Noël, and really liking this so far. I love the French cross-stitch design aesthetic, and so it's kind of fun to get a little bit of a different flavor of cross-stitch, as it were. So that is my little start on that. Okay. So that's all I have as far as stitching projects to show you. We do have a couple of questions that have come in on recent videos that we wanted to respond to. So one for me and one for Gary. So my question came from Lou X Stitch Aficionado. And Lou said, Amy, I noticed that you use a large Q-snap, 20 by 20. Yes, I can go up to a 20 by 20. For cabin fever, how do you stitch with those large Q-snaps? Great question. So I actually kind of hinted at this a little bit when I was talking about cabin fever, in that I mentioned when I was traveling, I actually took a smaller Nerge hoop that I can easily hold in my hand because the project is so big, and I was not going to be trying to hold a large Q-snap. When I'm stitching at home, regardless of the size of the Q-snap I'm stitching with, I have a Lowry stand. And that is where I put all of my Q-snaps. Now, even with a Lowry stand, when you get into a larger frame, for instance, like you saw the Q-snap that I have right now on Rose Trellis In, because it's what I've been working on. Sometimes the Lowry stand doesn't hold those super securely, and so I have to kind of fiddle with it to get it to stay in place. And if you bump it, you're going to be putting it back in the stand. I know that the Lowry stand, you can now order a corner clamp that is specifically designed for holding Q-snaps, and it's apparently a little bit more secure. I don't have that, but it's on my wish list. But that is how I stitch with the really large Q-snap on some of these bigger projects, is I get them mounted up into the Lowry stand, and that's how I do it. If it weren't for having a stand that could hold that frame for me, I would definitely have to either use a small Q-snap or some other small kind of hoop or frame or what have you. So that was my question. And then Gary had a question from Karen Ennis, and Karen said, Gary, how do you keep your action figures? She also said, I think Batman had his pink gloves on for Catwoman. My husband collects Hot Wheels, and we have many plastic containers of them. So, Gary, how do you keep your action figures?
Warm, safe, well-fed. Just the normal stuff you do for an action figure. It is a good question. And what I've learned since I've been collecting them is I'm not the only grown Beep man that Beep is for a, well, never mind. Anyway, I'm not the only grown man that's out there collecting figures. And it's fun when we see each other in the toy aisles and toy stores. It's like, yeah, why can't they move this away from the toys? Because anyway. I don't even remember what the question was. What was the question?
How do you keep your action figures?
Very well. Well-fed.
We covered that part.
Okay. No.
Eiderdown quilts.
What?
Never mind. Eiderdown quilts.
Okay. Most of them are in big bins. I actually just went through and put them all in a bunch of big bins instead of having them out. There was one time where I had them all out, but now most of them are stored away in bins, and I'll pull them out when I think about something I want to do with them in terms of pictures. But that's how I keep them. I'll tell you this much though, I'm trying to figure out how to store their accessories, because what happens is I have a little bag, it's full of tiny guns and knives. I don't know whose these things are. So, there you have it. So I'm thinking of finding a way to store them with their accessories. But it's also pretty expensive just to store them if you want to do it that way. There's little containers you could put them all in. Anyway, for now, I just put them in a paper bag, chuck them in a box, throw a couple of Doritos in there, and everything's fine.
So you do have a lot of them in bins, but I think what you didn't say is in your office space, you've got several shelves, including a pretty large bookshelf that you've got, like your more current collection out on display.
Well, that's because the question was, how do you keep your action figures? It wasn't, how do you display them?
Oh, well,
but
okay.
if you want,
fair enough.
if you want to get into that, I do have a fair amount of them out. The only place I'm really allowed to put them is in my room upstairs, which is okay, but they're not all around the house like they used to be.
Before
but that's
you got
another
married.
story. But yeah, I'll throw a couple of pictures up. We'll just wait while we're looking at the pictures. Yep, there they are. Anyway, so yeah, I really like taking pictures of them. That's why I have them, and I don't know why. It's just something I collect. I did collect Hot Wheels, but I had way too many of them, and I got rid of a lot of them. But I kept quite a few. I kept quite a few of them. But yeah, good on your husband there for collecting the wheels of hotness. That's a good thing.
I've told Gary a few times that he should have his own YouTube channel all about his action figures and his collection. I think that'd be very interesting. But
it'd be funnier. I could do funnier things. I'm kind of reserved here.
That's true. You guys should have heard what he said to me this morning. It was completely out of bounds.
Why don't you do the moves you were doing? She was dancing.
In the kitchen.
I said, well, I didn't say it like this, but I'm saying it this way now because it's funnier. And I said, so are you Godzilla taking Tokyo? Because she was all like, I don't know what she was doing. There was no twist, no monkey. I don't know. I don't know what was happening. Oh, look out, Tokyo. But anyway, that's enough of that.
You guys are going to need therapy and inner healing. That is not what it looks like. Whew. All right, let's talk globetrotting. So I don't have a whole lot to share about my trip to Rwanda, just because I was there for... there's a big annual Africa Food Systems Forum that happens every September, and every other year it happens in Rwanda, and then in the off years it's held in a different country in Africa. So it's a very, very busy week. It was busier than ever this year. It was just meetings literally from dawn till dusk and beyond. It was breakfast meetings all the way through to dinner meetings, and then meetings after dinner. And it was a very, very, very busy week, very productive, a lot of great connections and conversations. But all of that meant that I really didn't get out of like the hotel conference center complex where I was staying. So after things wrapped up on the final day, before we all kind of scattered back to the airport to catch our flights home, a colleague and I, she had discovered a little like handcrafts shop that was within walking distance of the conference center complex. And so she asked if I wanted to go over there with her, and I said, sure, I'd love to. And I've spent enough time in Africa over the last 15 years. When I first started traveling to Africa for work, I brought home a lot of beautiful handcrafts and, things that we now have in the house here that are part of our decor. But you can only have so much of that. And so it's been a while since I've really brought any art home. But this particular shop was just really beautiful. And the people that make things for the shop, it's actually a women's cooperative up in one of the villages, or an area of villages. And so they make these beautiful handcrafts and then send them down to this store in Kigali where, people like me can purchase them. And the workmanship was so beautiful and the colors were so beautiful that I could not resist. And so there were carvings and textiles and cards. And I mean, it was really lovely things. But I brought home a few hand-woven baskets. And so I thought you guys might like to see the 2 baskets I brought home. I had a heck of a time getting one of these, because I only do carry-ons. I don't check a bag. And so figuring out how to get this home in a carry-on was a little bit challenging, but we made it. So I'll show you the 2 things I brought home. So the first is this beautiful, beautiful kind of apricot pink with kind of these tans and golds and creams. So a gorgeous, gorgeous bowl that eventually is going to be on display in my office that's being put together right now. But just gorgeous. I love this. And this bowl was made by a woman named Alexi. So beautiful handcrafted work from Rwanda. And then the other piece that I bought is this beautiful tray. And this was made by a woman named Sylvie. And there were a number of beautiful pieces that were using kind of this color palette. And I had the hardest time deciding which one to bring home because the patterning was a little bit different in each one of them. And so deciding which one I liked the best was really hard for me. But the thing that really struck me about this, other than just the beauty of the piece itself, is these colors are like a perfect match for the colors in my De Farbe and Venedig cross-stitch project that you all have been seeing me work on for the last, the better part of the last year. And so I thought this would be a beautiful complement when that piece is finished and some of the other pieces that have some of those colors in the color palette. Although there's certainly different styles, you've got African versus a very kind of European style. The colors are just a beautiful match. And so I thought this would be a lovely complement in the room where those were going to be displayed eventually. So those were my 2 purchases from Kigali, and I thought you all would like to see those. The only other thing, I wanted to tell you guys, we had an incident at the airport, and that was something that has never happened to me before. So I was on my way home, and I was going through security at the airport in Kigali. And now it often happens that they'll pull me aside to look through my things. In fact, my boss always teases me when he travels with me because he's like, oh, she always gets pulled aside for something in her cross-stitch stuff. And it happened this time. And you never know what it's going to be that is going to trigger them to decide to go through your bags. And so I always am just mentally prepared for that. This is the first time I've ever had anything confiscated. And I have been in a lot of different countries. But the screening agent took a dislike to me and to my cross stitch apparently, and she confiscated my scissors, which, that was fine. I'm always prepared to lose my scissors. I've never lost them. I've traveled with that particular pair of scissors in many countries. No one has ever given me the least bit of grief for it. But she looked at those scissors and she's like, that's prohibited. And I thought to myself, well, it wasn't prohibited the last time I came to Rwanda, but you take them, go ahead. And so I was showing her, and I pulled out the cross-stitch project from the bag and I showed it to her. I was like, look, it's for embroidery. And she reached out and she took the needle off the magnet and she's like, this is prohibited. And she confiscated my needle. I was like, oh, come on. I didn't say that because you don't argue. And it was my favorite needle, you guys. I've been stitching with that needle for 5 years and they confiscated my needle in Rwanda. So I was pretty ticked off about it, but I just let it go. So that was that. So that's all I have to share about Rwanda. I did wanted one other quick thing on globetrotting, and that is in our last video, I was telling you all that I am going to be in London in December for some other meetings that I'm attending, and wanted to take advantage of the chance to meet up with a couple of stitchers, both known and unknown, while I am there. And so I've heard from a couple of you who are interested. And so Carol and Lynn, looking forward to seeing you guys, as well as others. And I know some others had indicated they were interested. So right now I'm looking at Sunday, December the 8th. In the London area, and I'm open to suggestions because I have no idea where would be a great place to meet. But if you were going to be in the London area on December 8th, would love to meet up with you and have a stitchy day somewhere. So we'll figure out the details, but yeah, just wanted to put that out there and pencil it in on your calendars, and I will look forward to meeting old friends and new, and just sharing our love of the stitching. So we're going to wrap up here. I'm going to tell you what we're going to be working on over the next few weeks. I did want to also make a quick note. We may have another little bit of a longer gap. I'm not sure when we'll be able to film our next update, because in addition to going to Atlanta in 2 weeks, I think it's 2 weeks, I have to go back to Nairobi for a week. So that may offset our filming schedule. So just a heads up on that. But over the next couple of weeks, as I said, I'm going to spend another day on Rose Trellis In. After that, I'm going to put in a week working on the colors of Venice. And so we'll see how far I can get on that. After that, I am going to get back to Rose of Sharon and put some more time into my Fancy Lady. I'm also hoping to get some time on Butterfly Port Mauve, which is my weekend stitch that has been horribly neglected for the past month. So hopefully I can do a little bit of catch-up work on that. And then Gary will be working, of course, on Wonder Woman, but it sounds like the focus is Louis Armstrong. So I think that does it for us today. We hope that you enjoyed catching up with us. It was really great to spend some time with you. If you enjoy our videos, I do hope you'll give us a like or hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing, sticking around with us. And we welcome and enjoy all of your comments. Well, the nice ones. We only very seldom get weird or rude comments. Usually everybody's super, super nice. So if you have something mean to say, just don't say it. The rest of you, we love hearing your comments and interacting with you there. You can also email us at globetrottingstitcher@gmail.com, and follow me on Instagram, where I post periodically, and that's globetrotting_stitcher. So with that, we will look forward to seeing you soon. We hope that you are enjoying your stitching and working on things that are giving you joy, and we will talk to you hopefully fairly soon. Happy stitching. No! Inappropriate.
Cut.